The Harsh Weather Testing Network is a project that brings companies and institutions together to compile knowledge on working in a cold climate. Before the end of the 3-year project, a closing seminar was held at Oulu during March 2013. Both new and established participants presented themselves and their work on harsh weather to the network.
We live in Arvidsjaur and have a very hard climate there. We have all the activities connected to the harsh weather. Actually, it's very good that we have such cold climate in Arvidsjaur. So that's why we have very big possibilities to make these testing activities for car testing companies. We have very many different companies from different countries that come to Arvidsjaur and test their cars there.
We build these new lines very often in the winter time because it is easier to have access roads to the wet areas. The soil is wet and it's impossible to use all vehicles. So it's easier in the winter time. One problem is that when it is too cold, the machines, they don't work after the cold period. And therefore sometimes have to stop working. Everything to do with the steel when the temperature is 35-40 degrees, so the steel is very it's weak, so you have to be careful when you are lifting towers that the structure can stand this.
The conditions are always windy in the winter and the areas are mostly fairly remote. Ice accumulation and snow is an extra hazard. You can't connect yourself everywhere where you would like to, so that you don't have the optimum access to your working place, and there's snow and ice on the roof making it slippery. The risk of falling is much greater during the winter. Also, having more clothes and having thicker gloves, you don't have such a good feel on your work. So even if you don't actually fall yourself, then the risk of dropping a spanner and having it drop right down to the ground is much greater.
When we have harsh weather, the number of accidents increases, and that's why we need a good risk management. You have to do the risk assessment more carefully and communicate them to all the personnel. That's the basic thing. We have a new tool for risk assessment, and it's based on a simple question: what would the next serious accident be in your job? It's a tool for kind of like simple risk assessment.
If we get a trauma patient in a nature, for example, a snowmobile crash in a forest. So the patient needs to be kept warm. Also the staff needs to be protected properly against the cold, darkness and the moist conditions. But the problem is that if we are wearing too much clothing, it's very difficult for us to work on site. We'll be like snowmen rolling around. So the clothing has to be adjusted properly because the staff is working inside an ambulance, inside people's homes, and also at the stations while they are not on a mission. So the clothing cannot be too much. It all comes down to the patient, so everything has to be adjusted according to the patient's needs.
We have looked at injuries during snow clearing activities on rooftops, and we have found that it has quite a high injury severity, and that it's mostly associated by people clearing the rooftops during leisure time. In the occupational setting, you're using safety equipment in a higher extent than during leisure time. Well, we find that it had quite a high injury severity, even higher than in snowmobile accidents. And the most common injury was fractures, but 1/10 had internal injuries. We published this study. We had quite a lot of attention, both from local media and national media. I believe that we got our message out in the public. We are planning for publication in a scientific paper. We hope to publish it sometime this year.
In Norway, in Ofotbanen, one of the challenges is the climate, of course. In Ofotbanen, they are using these wood slippers because of the low elasticity in the ground on Ofotbanen, because the rail is almost laying straight on the rock. But they are trying to use a new kind of sleepers. It's concrete sleepers, and we are trying to develop a new system to detect some cracks and defects on these concrete sleepers.
I was quite satisfied. I think the presentations were interesting, and we could have had a bit more audience, but anyway, I'm quite satisfied. And I think at least there were a couple of new persons to me, so I think the networking idea worked quite well today.
The purpose of the project actually is to build the network, and this network will deliver the service and the solutions further to the other companies. And I think that we actually succeeded with the network. So today we have approximately 14 different companies from different cities.
The network has given us an excellent opportunity to see other companies with similar problems and how they have managed some of these risks. So we've got ideas on how to manage them.
I think I know more possibilities now. Companies who do some other things than Finnish Institute of Occupational Health. I know some partners in harsh weather.
I'm positive to works like this, where you have where you gather people from different countries that has different expertise, and it's a great opportunity to learn from each other, I believe.
Well, the project ends, but what is going to stay is this network and the internet site. So www.harsnet.eu is going to be alive for 5 more years, and we will try to update it from time to time and keep it alive that way. And this will, I think, will give the network also the possibility to stay alive.